Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the live recording of the Wiseman's Roundtable for Whatnot sellers in the Whatnot community on Whatnot. All right, so over the last few weeks, we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about layout as it pertains to getting ready for your show. We've also talked about packaging flow, how once you've set the things over there for packaging, it should be a seamless process so you don't have any screw-ups. And I will have a personal antidote on that later. All right, we've also talked about why we do it, and what would happen if you stop. So not everybody can do this full-time. So what happens if you amass a bunch of stuff and you decide you don't want to do it anymore? What would happen then? And last week we actually talked about what you need, the ancillary items you need to be a reseller on Whatnot. And today we're going to talk about show performance. Show performance is a very important aspect of who you're going to attract to your feed. If you want to be wild and crazy, you will attract wild and crazy people. A lot of my most loved fans are a little wild too. And some of my long terms are a little wild. In the chat anyway. In public, who knows, you know. If you run a real dry show, you'll get dry people, but you will get good one-liners because that's the type of jokes that a dry person delivers. I'm kind of on the edge of 2 or 3 different categories of people, depending on what day you catch me and how I'm dressed and whether or not I shaved. So I attract a broad spectrum of customers, but show performance is important. Not every day is going to be, your top day. There are going to be some days where you're like, oh man, I got a show scheduled. I wish I just hadn't got all this stuff in, or I would just cancel it, And then other days, you're going to be so psyched to go perform a show that the people around you get tired of hearing about it. And that's when you know you love it. So it seemed to me that a lot of my followers want the jokes. They want the not sadistic, but satirical humor. I think they like it that I give it to both sides sometimes, most of the time, and that I call it like I see it. There's really no question of whether or not I see a subject as black or white. It should be a good and bad in all things. But that being said, you don't have to be a humor box. But what you do need to be is consistent. Even on those days when you're not feeling it, you still need to hit it with a level of energy like you care about the people you're interacting with. There are some days, these last 2 days heading through the end of February, were pretty slow. And at one point, I even joked that it turned into a talk show, and began to behave as such. And it took me a couple minutes to be like, whoa, what are you doing? It's not a talk show. You do talk shows on Sundays. So you got to remind yourself what you're there to do. You're there to interact with the customers and serve their needs, because a lot of people don't have stores that they can pop into across the United States. In my journeys, I've seen towns where I didn't see a city or anything that looked like it had a Rite Aid or a Walgreens for over an hour. And I thought that's one heck of a way to live, to have to drive an hour to anything that we would take for granted over on the East Coast. But you get past this Mississippi and it starts to get vast areas out there. Those people might be buying from you because they don't have stores. Think about it that way. All right. What's up, TC? Another thing that I do like to talk about is try to keep your eye on your chat. No matter how much you're doing, even during these podcasts, I'm still trying to watch that chat in case somebody has a problem. And I'll give you the personal anecdote I was talking about. So, last night we were in the chat, and someone came in and said I shorted them something. And that's really kind of odd for me. That doesn't normally happen. Matter of fact, I struggled to find a time that it had happened. So, I immediately after the show looked it up, and I'm like, I remember packing that because I saved that person for last because they had the most stuff. So I'm like, it really seems improbable that it went out to someone else. So I'm like, how would I go back to determine whether or not this thing went out? And at the time that I had gone to bed, I could not reach a resolution on whether or not I thought the thing had gone out, which was a positive because I was like, all right, I don't think I'm being shammed in any way. I think what's happened is I've probably left this out of the package and I can't think of how I did that because I have a process for all these things. So then throughout the course of the evening, overnight, another message was received and it said there was another item missing. And those two items together gave me a mental image of them sitting on the table and therefore entered doubt into my mind as to whether or not I actually shipped them. So I immediately took I don't know if I shipped them or not, but I can see in my mind two things that look like that, so I probably didn't ship them, so I need to get this fixed. And believe it or not, Whatnot customer service works on a Sunday because I told the guy this morning before church time that I would talk to Whatnot in the AM and get a shipping label to send him the stuff. And around 1 o'clock this afternoon, Whatnot contacted me. And by the time they've contacted you, they've looked at your messages as well, so they know what's going on. And I said, I can't determine whether or not I sent it or not. I'm defaulting to I didn't send it. Let's just get them another packing slip and we'll get it out of here. And it happens like that. You tell them what your decision is if they're asking you, and then, boom, they send you the resolution. Always been good with Whatnot customer service when it comes to satisfying the customer. I've never had any problems. So, show performance. In the midst of that, it gave me a couple things to do in that show. The first thing was when I found out about it, it gave me an opportunity to show the people in the chat how I deal with problems. The second thing it did was it allowed the people in the chat to also see that I actually cared about the problem. And then the third thing it did, since I was quickly able to resolve it and figure out which order it was and all that, it showed the customer that I cared about his problem. And then today's resolution will further enhance that I and Whatnot care about the customer. Then going on from that, we went to the rest of the show. Now, if you're feeling down, that you need to be setting your goals. It takes me 2 hours and about 20 minutes to run a 55 item buck and go. That's a long time. All right, TC Military writes, I wish that Whatnot would provide a notification path to resolve anything less than a 5-star review. I actually absolutely agree because there have been a couple that I'm like, I don't necessarily believe that person. I think they're trying to get over and get the product and the money because they get their shipping and everything back when they're dissatisfied. Now, Whatnot says they monitor that across accounts to make sure that people aren't abusing the problem, but, you know, I don't know. I would assume that the person's probably not doing it to the same seller over and over, or at some point they'd start taking pictures of every item before it goes out the door. Yeah, I don't know. I wish they did too. And I noticed eBay doesn't do that anymore either. Like, you don't get a chance to resolve negative feedback. TC Military also writes, I had someone say an item was broken when received, which he could have fixed, but he didn't even know about it. I would agree with that too, but like I said, I don't know. You know, you care. Most people don't care about anything. So they're just like, oh, broken. What not satisfaction guarantee. Bam. Problem solved. Then they use it anyway, even though it's broken. It's okay. You can't what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not going to say you can't make everybody happy, because you're in there, so we already know you can't make everybody happy, but what's the words I'm looking for? If we spend too much energy on these losses, then all you do is sit around thinking about ways to prevent the losses instead of saying, did I do everything I thought I did in that part? I did. And in your case, you might not have felt the financial loss. Sometimes they don't charge back to you. In this case, the item was a $60 item and a $4 item. So betwixt the two of those, if I did send it out and I'm being taken, it just seems pretty coincidental I have that mental image of those two items. What I think is most likely is I did screw the pooch on this, and Whatnot's actually saving me by not making me pay for a shipping label to send the product to the guy in this particular case. There have been other cases where it didn't work out very well. I felt like somebody was taking advantage, but only one or two times. Most of the time, if something gets left out, I can form a mental image of why I left it out if I get enough details. TC Militaria, true words, brother. Always drive forward and make improvements along the way. Yeah, and, you know, I could say that this loss is a cost motivator, or that this negative experience is going to do this and that for your personality and experience. But basically, if it's not life-threatening, it's not Whatnot career-threatening, then I would just say, how can I fix the process so this don't happen again? And am I safe moving forward? Meaning, for me, like all the things I already sent, are they still sound? Or is somebody out there in possession of these two items? You know, and then shouldn't they have said something? But then is the burden on them to say something? You know, you never know. But the show performance, I don't do I don't do any games, only because I don't want to take the time to learn the rules. I do use the $1 start. The Buck and Go is it's a secondary selling model. It's not, for me, it's not a primary selling model. First of all, most of the things that I can regularly sell to my customers wouldn't really fit in the Buck and Go niche, because they're either MAP or the price is directly affected by supply and demand. So y'all don't know what's available and what's not available. So I don't know. I really don't feel like it's a good one for me. Now, in blowing off pouches, maybe. But I'm not a fan of the Buck and Go model. I think it takes way too much, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is without just always sounding like I think it's a negative experience, because it's not, because they do work. You do make money. But there's a difference in sitting around and knowing what a product's going to make if it sells versus not knowing what was really made. And if you're doing if you're doing like 10 shows a week, with my faculties and the amount of staff that I have available to me right now and the demands on my time right now, it is not the model I would go into, which is why you don't see me in knives very much anymore. It has turned into, Alex MCD writes, too much volatility in it. Yeah, yes. Especially if you would have been doing it over the last 2 days. Over the last 2 days, it doesn't seem like it probably would have played out well. But it also could have been that my buyers were holding out to see what was going to happen in the Buck and Go shows. You never actually know, unless they flat out tell you. And, I'm not in the business of asking everybody as they go by. You might have 300 people come through the show in an hour and a half to 2 hours in a slow category. If you can sell, what's the normal performance rate? 10% to 12% show up for any organization. So I'm thinking that if 300 came in, you'd be lucky to get 30 orders. I've seen days where I've had 300 come in and I've sold a whole lot of orders, and I've seen days where I've had 487 according to Whatnot's Matrix and not had very many orders at all. A slow day for me is less than 20, and a busy day for me is more than 45. But you also got to consider the amount of time I run. I'm only physically capable now of running about 2 hours before I need to get up and take a break and walk around. TC Militaria writes, mill surplus and tactical gear is hard to buck and go. I'd completely agree on that. Good stuff isn't cheap. Absolutely certain. And cheap stuff isn't good. Unless you're getting surplus pouches from Dark Sun. No, I'm just joking. I get what you're saying. And then he closes that one with, but there is a lot of good and affordable stuff. I would agree with you 100%. And I have friends that are in this business, and they are much bigger than me, and they make a lot more money than me, and they charge more than me. But they sell more than me. I haven't figured that out. And TC Military writes, cheap ACU stuff is good, though. Yes, it is. And it can be dyed if you're looking for the visual aspect. But other things you may be into, Buck and Go could work. Like, I gotta be honest with you. I've looked at a lot of different categories, and I think that jewelry's one of them. Rings from factory price jewelry. You get on there, you buy them by the dozen or whatever, and then you sell them Buck and Go. You could probably make a ding out of that. Shoes. Shoes is one where I feel like some days I feel like you might be able to make it, and then other days I'm like, there's just no way. And it's only because everybody needs a shoe, but what we tend to forget is there's 5,000 manufacturers out there making them, so there is actually a lot of shoes. And then, of course, resellers in clothing might be able to make it. Whatnot knife shows blow your mind. There's a lot going on with them. Yeah, LOL. Yeah. Don't ever put on in your investigator's hat and go watch them. You will start wondering, wait a minute. Because you're not looking for the winner. You're looking for when it slows. So, the last two names before it slows. And you watch them. And I've watched them for like an hour and a half before. And I've watched them go across 2 or 3 different brands. And it's very odd. Especially if you're a dealer and you can look at the wholesale prices. You start to kind of wonder what's going on there. But, I don't have the energy to do that. Nor do I make friends very easy, so I don't really care. That's why I'm not in a knife game. And when I do go into knives, it's usually with an assortment of things, and you only see me buck and go when I need some room. That is a space clearer for me. There's also a thing called the sold method, and I have to attribute that to Chris from Daily Refinement. And I am not going to expound on it because it's not mine. I will tell you to go look at his website, his YouTube, or just type sold method into YouTube and you'll find it. That is a way of using Buy It Now and eBay. It's an eBay thought process, and you can bring it over to Whatnot. All right, so show performance. Some people get the nerves, and I believe I've gone over my mind clearing techniques before. This isn't a cult practice. This is an actual thing. You don't need to drink any special Kool-Aid or buy any special programs. You just basically use your name, and for sake of argument here, we will say my name is Wiseman, to represent the three names. So Wise E Man. So the beginning of it is 3 repeats of I am Wise E Man. I am Wise E Man. And I am Wise E Man. You get the point. So you say that 3 times while you're trying to focus. And then the second iteration, you remove your middle name. So in this case, I would say I am Wise Man. I am Wise Man. I am Wise Man. And then you do just your first name. I am Wise. Then when you get to the end of that third mantra, you're done. And if you've refused to think about other things or had to restart several times, you will clean your mind. And that might be a good time, or a good time to do that might be right before you're trying to put your show in order. That last 15 minutes before the show, where you're getting everything laid out in the order you're going to present it. Because in show performance, if you can get 15 to 20 items out pretty quickly and get some boxes going, your number of buyers generally, or the number of overall sales will increase, even if sometimes the number of buyers do not. Me and Big Man had been in shows before where we were trying to get the box going, and we were actually saying it. All right, y'all, we're going to put out these 10 products right real quick, and everybody's going to get a box going. And then that's going to help them on the next shipping item, and then the next shipping item, and then the next shipping item. And they'll just keep doing that until we've sold all 10, 15, or 20 of our box starters. Once the boxes are started, the people kind of settle down a little bit and stick around. Because once you've invested, I'll never figure out where that is, so I'm sorry I didn't cut it. Once you've invested money into shipping from this one person, why not sit around and see what else they've got? You know what I mean? And cost average your shipping out so that the cost of the goods wasn't as much. I usually have more customers that bought 3 or more items than I have 2 or less. I usually have more customers that buy 3 or more items than buy 2 or less. That's a fact for me. I don't know if it works like that for everybody. But if you've got good stuff and your regulars didn't have it all promised to them, then try to present 15 to 20 good items really quick in the beginning of your show anyway. If you know you've lost your momentum and you know your brain has lost its course, just tell them, man, y'all, I don't know what's going on. I lost my course of thought. We talked about so much, blah, blah, blah. However you do it. Joel Osteen method, Malcolm X method, Donald J. Trump method. I don't care. However you are honest, just be honest. Tell them, oh, man, I lost my train of thought. I forgot where we were. Anybody know where I was going with that? And if you got mods, they'll help you. Mods will help you a lot in show performance. I've got this particular mod. I won't name pack Shauna, but I mean, they always have something funny to say in the chat. They're always getting mixed up in craziness. And they really bring a lot of energy to the chat. And then there's Jeremy, who was one of our first mods way back in the day. He is wild and crazy. I tell you, you will attract the type that you are. And he can get wild in the chat. So your mods can help keep things energetic. And treat your mods well. When you can afford to, take care of them. Because if you take care of them, they'll look out for you. I can't tell you how many people my mods have sent my way. Now, some people don't like the cultiness of some of the places, and I think I know what they mean. Because we have a cult on my channel, but our cult is about protecting others and being kind to each other. So I don't think they really mean us. I think they mean these cults where the host is a demigod and the goblins are running around smashing anybody that speaks dissent or whatever. If you get like that, it's your channel. If you're okay with it, run with it. You know, but people do want to feel welcome, so you do kind of need to make sure, or try to make sure, that you have an open environment for everybody to suffer in equally, or enjoy themselves equally without any pain or pressure. So if you're going to bring pain, bring it to everybody. You know what I mean? All right. Last thing in show performance. Don't be afraid to call it. No joke. Don't be afraid to call it, especially if you can go across multiple categories. Sometimes you can kind of feel when the energy's out of the room, and other times you can look and see there's no one in your room, and you can look and figure out the cause pretty quick. If that cause is that there's just nobody around, don't be afraid to go somewhere else. If that cause is something that you can't compete with. So let's say there's gamers on and then there's you and everybody's in the gamers. Well, you know, you can't really compete with that, but you can go somewhere else. TC Militaria says it can be like a light switch sometimes. It can. And what I noticed is when it's going down like that, it's usually someone new here that pulls the viewers away. And then after the fun of fucking go is gone and that retailer starts to realize how much money they were losing and how much money could have been made if they just sold regular, they either go away or they go to buy it now. So we'll give them time. Takes everybody 3 to 4 months to ruin their finances, so we'll find out. Usually when it switches off like a light, somebody came on that's a deal that people can't help but be there. You know, if you weren't on in your stream, you'd probably be there, you know. TC Military, I always try to deconflict with you and a few other streams. Yes, and actually, for the longest time in this business, me and Big Man really were it. And a lot of people didn't want to compete with us because they thought that people wouldn't stop viewing, or they thought that people would stop viewing. Some people were more concerned about what would happen to us if they started with their model on there. One of them was, we save you money. And I told her, hey, you got to do what you got to do. Don't worry about me. God's got me. Even the birds eat. I got groundhogs in my backyard that are fat as hell. And I ain't seen one of them go to work yet. I ain't seen one of them get a 1040 EZ done. And I don't feed them. So they're doing okay. Yeah, I ain't worried about it. But that being said, if I see the competition is one of my followers, like Friday, that's what happened. One of my followers was on, and one of the new Flash in the Pans was up there. So I just cut bait, went over to books, because I got a whole bookshelf full of prepper books that came in Friday. And we had a good book show. So it ended up working out. Didn't bother me any. But I'm also in a position where I don't have to sell it. I own everything. Nothing's on credit. I ain't worried about whether or not it stays or goes. You know, I can do other things. All right. Show performance is important. Keep your energy up. Make sure your people know that you care about them. And if you don't act like you care about them, because, you know, they'd rather you be true. Alright. Well, it looks like I got some text. Alright. That's all I wanted to talk about tonight. Quick recap of the subjects we covered previously, and to talk about show performance. Anybody have any questions? I'm open to questions, and it can be technology based, it can be understanding, it can be strategy. I don't care. I'm good. I'm working on my first commercial. All right, yo. I'm Wiseman with Dark Sun Over Value Network. I also have another business, VALifeCoaching.com. That's right, VALifeCoaching.com. I'm working on my first commercial.
A lot.
I suck
Let me
at
check
video
something out.
editing, but I am working on it. All right, y'all be good to each other. Remember, God loves us all. The world does not have to suck. Every time it sucks, there's usually another human involved. Don't be that human. If you're not part of the problem, you're almost by default part of the solution, just because you're not in the way. God loves us all. You, me, them, even the people that don't know him yet. It's going to be all right. It's all in his hands. All right, I'm going to end this show out. I don't know how to raid. Last time I thought I raided, I still was running a show 35 minutes later.